Hello, everyone. It's Reverend Zachary. And as you've probably gathered, I'm actually away from Cedars this week. But I did want to take a moment and remind everyone that the month of March is our stewardship campaign at Cedars. And as part of this, we are going to ask members of the church to give some testimonials throughout the month of March, talking about why Cedars is important in their life and the reasons that they choose to contribute financially to this community. And so before our service, I want to take a moment for Vicki and Steve Johnson to share their testimonial with all of you.
I can't recall a year in my lifetime that has tested us all quite as much as this past year. We've been socially isolated, socially distancing. We've been wearing masks, so we almost don't recognize each other sometimes when we go to the grocery store. But I think if you took a survey, many people would say that there have been some very valuable lessons learned during this year about how much more we value the simple, basic things in life. Our families, our friends, our communities, especially the Cedars community. Our need for connection and belonging likely has never been greater. During some of the darkest days last year, when we were not only dealing with a pandemic, but a president who had turned our values just upside down, I found connecting with my Cedars friends through Sunday services and our different groups provided a healing and uplifting that helped me through the worst of times. While members of our Cedars congregation come from diverse backgrounds, I think we share similar values about the way we treat each other and humankind in general. Cedars has represented to me this year a safe place of kindness, compassion, and caring for each other. Being part of the Cedars community is an important part of Steve and my life, and we want to support this very precious community through our monthly donations. We've developed new friendships that we cherish. We've explored and learned from each other and from our pastor as we discover the mysteries of life and death. We've laughed a lot and we've had a lot of fun. And it's been a great investment for us. So I'm keeping that vision in my head that one day we'll be together singing hymns, chatting over coffee, and just being together.
Well, I think Vicki is, as is usually the case, speaks for us. I speak a lot, but I think when we're talking about our perspectives and Cedars and so on, I think she captures it best, and I share all her views that she's just expressed. Needing Cedars more than ever during the pandemic, I found that I'm a little less engaged during the pandemic because of my style, but I get a lot of it kind of through her, and I love Cedars. Cedars has meant a great deal to me. It's sort of a weekly refuge. I was a pretty regular attender because I didn't want to miss that. Some of it, the church has helped me deal with some demons of the past that I found very helpful. And it gives me an understanding and a perspective and community and a way of reconciling my place and our place in the world. So I think it's a vital part of our lives, the community that we've constructed with Friends Through Cedars. I very much believe in supporting it. We need to support it. It's maybe in some ways more challenging in this time when we're not as engaged, but we're strongly committed to Cedars and tend to be for the long haul. And so that's our perspective on Cedars.
Welcome to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Michael Cox, and I am the worship associate for our virtual service today, alongside our faith formation leader, Catherine J. I always look forward to working with Catherine. I also want to inform everyone of an event on Wednesday, March 24th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Reverend Zachary will join 5 other clergy from Bainbridge Island to discuss climate change and their different faith traditions. All are welcome. The beacon includes details about the event. Before we start, let's pause to acknowledge the members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of Coast Salish tribes. The homelands of the Suquamish, Duwamish, Klallam, and Chimacum people were ceded under duress during the Point Elliott and Point No Point treaties. We are grateful guests on these lands and affirm Indigenous sovereignty both past and present. This acknowledgement does not substitute for the need to build authentic relationships with modern-day members of these tribes and to learn about their living culture and history. Our faith community is sustained by the generosity of our members. Your contribution will nourish the spiritual growth of our community through weekly worship and ongoing programs that cultivate connection, belonging, sharing, and caring. Included in the video description and displayed on the screen is information to make a contribution to Cedars through our PayPal account. Please take time either now or later in the service to make a contribution to help sustain Cedars. Your gifts are greatly appreciated. Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in our uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, in the beauty of who and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. You're invited to join us today and always with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. I have to say that I am envious when I hear the spirited excitement of people talking about their spiritual journey and their connection with something bigger than themselves. I am envious because while I'm embarrassed to say it, I generally do not feel those connections with something bigger than myself. Some people talk about going into nature and gaining valuable insights into who they are and their relationships to the natural world. I go into nature and enjoy the quiet, the animals, and the physical challenge, but I do not come out of that experience with any deeper insights into myself or the world. Some talk about their special experience with meditation or yoga and how that helps them to become in touch with their bodies or a higher being or spirit. I meditate and have a hard time staying focused or just fall asleep. Some talk about using music or dance or movement to explore their inner being and connection to the world. I enjoy all those activities and many times become emotional over specific songs as they remind me of a special moment, but it does not go beyond that. Some talk about there being a God or a spirit or some other great designer of the universe, and they gain solace and insights from knowing these greater beings or spirits exist. While I understand how people would gain comfort in believing this, I do not share those beliefs. Sometimes I feel that I am missing an important aspect of life for not having spiritual practices that could provide me with the deeper spiritual connections with myself and the outside world. I wonder if I'm just too scared to dig deeper into my soul, heart, or mind to find that meaning others seem to have. At times, I feel inadequate because while I have the desire to find those deeper connections and meaning, it just does not happen. But as I get older, I am becoming to believe I am who I am. That, of course, is not a deep insight and probably a cop-out, but on the other hand, maybe it's okay. I believe we are all on a journey to find meaning, connection, and love in our short lives. This journey, of course, includes the quest to find some spiritual connection in whatever form that might take. For me, maybe I need to be content with finding meaning in being a good person and not beating myself up for not finding that deeper spiritual meaning so many others seem to have. The great thing is that the journey continues, and who knows, maybe someday I will find that path where I do make those deeper connections. But in the meantime, I will take joy in people's spirited expression of their spirituality in whatever form that might take. I dedicate the lighting of our chalice to the journey we're all on to find our place in the world and the path that provides meaning to our lives and others.
As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because they are our family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness, because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
Hi, everybody. We're going to sing Do When the Spirit Says Do. It's in your teal hymnal, but you don't need a hymnal. And we're not even putting lyrics up because it's very simple, and I'll teach you how to do it. By the way, this is not a good time to go get your second cup of coffee. You're going to be busy here. I want 100% participation. I'm stuck at the piano, but feel free to dance and laugh and wiggle and do all those things that the song suggests. There's one tricky bit that you need to know. It goes like this. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. So I'll help you with hand motions. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. One more time. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. Okay, I think that'll work. And now you're confident you can sing the whole thing. The first thing is we're gonna do when the Spirit says do. We're gonna do when the Spirit says do. We're gonna do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do, 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 Spirit says do. Sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing, la la. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing, la la. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing, oh Lord. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing, 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 Spirit says sing. Dance. Now, you get to dance, because I can't. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance, oh Lord. Gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance, 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 Spirit says dance. Laugh. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you gotta laugh. Oh Lord, you gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. Spirit says laugh, 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 Spirit says laugh. Clap. You gotta clap when the Spirit says clap. You gotta clap when the Spirit says clap. When the Spirit says clap, you gotta clap, oh Lord. You gotta clap when the Spirit says clap. Spirit says clap, 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 Spirit says clap. Do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. Gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do, 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 Spirit says do. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, my name is Catherine Jay, and I want to welcome you again to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. Our call to worship today is by the Reverend Sharon Wiley. Reverend Wiley writes, "This was a difficult week again. This is a difficult time still. The world is full of chaos and conflict still. People are dying, storms threaten, turmoil abounds again. Still, like always, we gather together each week, sheltered against the storm, sheltered together against storms that have been raging for decades, for millennia. Each wounded soul is welcome here. Each broken heart, each weary spirit. Together we take shelter and sing and cry, mourn and rejoice, hopeful that our shared healing here will in turn help heal a hurting world. Come, let us worship together.
Hi, my name's Tyler, and I'm here to tell you the story today. Catherine took the day off from telling the story to do the sermon, so hopefully I can live up to her high standard. And today we're going to hear a story about a dog named Rockford. Rockford is today about 8 years old. He's really big, he's really hairy, he's black and brown with white spots, and if he feels like it and jumps all the way up on his hind legs, he can put his paws up on a grown man's shoulders. Not that I'm that tall, but you get the idea. He's a pretty big dog. But I'm not going to talk about Rockford today. I'm going to talk about Rockford when he was a puppy. Because, I'll be honest, he was a bit of a handful when he was a puppy. When Rockford first came to his house, his home, about 7 years ago on a small farm, he was a cute guy, but he was big even for then. He had, those puppy paws that are like bigger than the rest of the body, and you could just tell he was going to be a big dog. Nobody quite knew what kind of dog he is, but, he or where he came from, but, he always has been a very, let's say he's always loved life a lot. That was evident from the first day he was home. One of the first things he did was when he came home as a puppy, he was very, very excited to see the cat. He'd never seen a cat before. The cat, whose name was Chaucer, he was older, brown, and pretty fluffy himself, had seen dogs before, and he hadn't really cared for them that much. And here was this puppy, so excited to see a friend. And he bounded up to the cat, Chaucer, licked him, tried picking him up, tried playing with him, and Chaucer had about 30 seconds of that. And then it was bam, 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 paws right in the face. And then he jumped up on a counter and looked down at Rockford like, you know, one of those real judgy cat looks you get. If you've ever had a cat, you know what I mean. And, you know, Chaucer, from there on after, would always be up high up, looking down, because he really did not want to mess with that dog when that dog was in the room. But that was by far, that was only part of, you know, Rockford's overall puppyhood, which was quite eventful. Because he was rambunctious. Like I said, he loved life. When he would eat his food, he would eat it so fast that little bits of it would fly everywhere. And then he, you know, when he was done with what was in the bowl, he'd scurry around and try to get the little bits. And half the time he would knock over his bowl of water, which would then, you know, make a huge mess, and everyone would get upset. And he'd be left wondering, what'd I do? I was just eating dinner. You know, he was big enough that he would try to get food off the counter just because it's there. You know, the food's there. In his mind, he always just thought the food was there. I can get it. Nobody's here. Why wouldn't I take it? He'd always try to get on people's beds, get on the couches, and, you know, just a nonstop ball of energy. A lot of fun, but wow, not the easiest to live with. And he knew it. He could tell he wasn't quite understanding what he was supposed to do in the house. But the number one thing he did, and then he knew he was doing it wrong, but he just didn't know how to, you know, stop it, was he was a barker. Still is a barker. And, you know, even when he was a puppy, he was a big dog, so he had this really deep voice. And so when someone would come over to say hello, or there'd be a package delivered, or somebody just come home in their car, he'd hear them, and the symphony would begin. Oh, 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 over and over. And he knew he wasn't supposed to do it, and he would be told he should be quiet and stop doing it, and he just couldn't stop himself. He was just so excited to see other people and do other things that there were just a certain number of barks he had to get out. You know, and sometimes he was alerting people to stuff, and, well, it frankly drove the family crazy. You know, for a while they lived on this small farm, and they would have him outside with the other animals more often because they just figured this dog needed more room to run. But he didn't really get along with the ducks or the chickens or the sheep either. I mean, he would just kind of be in their face, eating their food, bothering them, hectoring them, you know, just trying to play with them, really. But it was a rough entry, and he didn't know it. But his family was really wondering if they could keep him around. He was so much energy. He loved life so much. Maybe he just needed a bigger space. But something changed for Rockford one night. He was sleeping in the basement where he kind of had to be, because otherwise he would jump up on the couches and jump on people's beds and bother them. And it just so happened that that was the time of year where the family was raising some new chicks in the basement. And chicks, if you're raising them without a hen, require some extra heat, which usually comes with a heat lamp. And these lamps can get really hot. And that night, one got really hot, hotter than it should have. And Rockford was down there and he could smell the smoke. It was starting to heat up and make the place where the chicks were smoking a little bit. And Rockford, he didn't really understand the science of fire, but he knew that's something that he shouldn't be doing, that shouldn't be going on. So he smelled the smoke and went nuts. Oh, 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 oh. Scratching on the door until the door opened. And then he ran upstairs and was jumping on everyone's bed and licking their faces and going to the next room and doing the same thing to the other people. And, the people got up and went, Rockford, be quiet. What's going on? And he just kept barking and barking until they followed him down the steps and saw that there was a fire starting over in the corner where the chicks were. And they frantically got water and put it out and saved the chicks. The chicks were okay. Everything was all right. It was just a small fire. But it would have been really bad if Rockford hadn't saved the day. And the family was so, so grateful. This dog who had been eating off their counters and spilling water and bothering the cat and jumping on the bed and barking at everybody had kind of saved the house. Definitely saved the chickens. And so from that day forward, he didn't have to sleep in the basement anymore. He was allowed to occasionally get up and sleep on the beds. He even got some scraps from the table. And as long as he stayed off the counters, he was even allowed in the kitchen when dinner was being made. And there's a rumor, late at night, sometimes Chaucer the cat even comes down from his high perch to curl up with Rockford for a couple hours of sleep. And that's your story for today. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to a time of prayer and meditation. Let's begin by taking a deep cleansing breath together. Did you know that in Hebrew, the word for breath is also the word for spirit? So when we breathe in spirit. And when we breathe out spirit too. Spirit of life, spirit of love. It's been a year. It's been a year and my body is tired. My spirit is uneasy. There are glimmerings of hope as more and more of us get a vaccine. As we talk about first doses and second doses, it seems as if our world may begin to return to something different, to something more. And yet, it's been a year, and so many of us are tired and weary, alone and grieving. Here in the Cedars community, we know that that is true. People are hurting and suffering. Let us as a community resolve to pray for those people in our community, but also to reach out to those people in our community, to be with them in their time of grief, to sit with them in their sadness. We also know that there is so much to be grateful for. We are grateful for this church community and the way that it holds us. We are grateful for our friends and our family. Yes, we are even grateful for Zoom. We are grateful for the beauty around us. We are grateful for the coming of spring. Help us to hold that sense of gratitude and wonder. Let us be filled with the spirit of thankfulness. Let us breathe out the spirit of thankfulness and reach the people around us. And help us to remember that we are not alone. There is love holding us, even as we hold each other. May it be so. Amen.
When my soul is feeling weary and the days go on and on, when my problems seem like mountains and I'm left without a song, when I have no time for spirit and my goals are distant dreams, then it's time to choose again. When I have no time for others, when my mind is full of me, when I cannot help my neighbor, for darkest fear is all I see, then I wonder what's the reason for this heaviness I feel. And it's time, yes, it's time to choose again. When I choose again to listen, loving spirit heals my grief. When I choose to be more giving, then I'm ready to receive. I am filled with radiant beauty, a child of God at perfect peace. Thank you, Spirit, gentle Spirit, I choose again. Thank you, Spirit, gentle Spirit, I choose again.
Show a little bit of spirit, but not too much. Be enthusiastic, but not too enthusiastic. Feel deeply, but don't be too loud about it. Be enough, but not too much. We get this message a lot, like there's a box and we need to fit inside of it. Years ago, my wife Elizabeth and I visited a new church. Arlo and Annie were 4 or 5. They were too little to leave alone in the RE classroom, so they came to the service with us. Annie and Arlo were at that age where parents carried small bags of food everywhere as a calming mechanism. We had friends who swore by cheese sticks. We favored apple slices and Cheerios. We all settled into the pews near the back. The opening reflection, the first song, a reading, the kids were quiet. We were acing it. But then the questions started, first in whispers, and then a little louder. Why did the man do that? What did he say? Why is everyone standing up? And then Arlo and Annie got the wiggles, sliding down into the pew, poking each other. The folks in the row in front of us glanced back at us once, then twice. Elizabeth whipped out some paper and crayons, and that activity bought us another song, maybe the prayer. But then both kids wanted to get up and look around, check the place out. There was more wiggling, more questions that started with why. It was Cheerio time. For whatever reason, Cheerios had a magic effect on our kids. It was the taste, maybe it was the texture, the eye-hand coordination that was needed to eat them. We didn't question why it worked. We were just happy that they did. So Elizabeth and I had settled in to listen to the sermon when a woman sitting behind us leaned forward and admonished us. "There's no food in the sanctuary," she whispered with authority. "You need to put that away." Well, we did not fit in. We did not belong. We did not feel welcomed. We had too much spirit, too much energy, and there were too many unwritten rules to break. Now, I want to be clear, neither one of my kids fell on the spirited spectrum. Even as very little people, Arlo and Annie mostly sat still, mostly listened. They rarely yelled or stomped, well, at least in public, and they didn't race around the pews with abandon. From hanging out with other parents, Elizabeth and I know we had it so easy. And still, church with children was hard. All that rambunctious energy ready to burst into song, or maybe burst into tears. Just like puppies, kids have spirits that are hard to contain. Now, I get it. As soon as Annie and Arlo were happy and comfortable in RE, we attended service without them, pleased to have moments of quiet, the chance to sit in silence, the calm of the sanctuary. I used to feel a loss when kids cried during silent meditation. I never shushed anyone, but I may have felt the impulse once or twice. In our button-down society, a little bit of spirit wins praise, but display too much spirit and the negative labels come out. Whether we're talking about the bouncing ball energy of a spirited kid or the unbridled ecstasy of a religious mystic. Many UU churches struggle to welcome the gigglers, the ones who forget to use their indoor voices, and also the grown folks who want to dance in the aisles, anyone who might want to shout amen during a sermon. There's such a fine line to fitting in, to feeling the spirit yet following the rules. So spirited folks of all ages sometimes feel like misfits. It's different online, of course. Right now, as I'm preaching, you might be in the kitchen making yourself a sandwich or doing yoga in the living room. There's a reasonable chance that some of you are wearing your pajamas, or at least sweatpants. You can get up and stretch whenever the spirit moves you. You can do a little dance, wiggle your toes, pet the dog. I deeply miss the companionship and togetherness of Sunday services. But the freedom of YouTube services has some benefits. We each get to decide how we want to participate and where and even when. Maybe you're watching this on a Tuesday. If so, welcome. We can all be as spirited or as quiet as we want. There's no expectations to sit or stand at a particular time. At home, we make our own rules, so we fit in. Still, let's explore the impulse that we have to continue to gather together. Why are you here listening to this sermon, participating in this service? What brings you to church, in person or virtually, on a Sunday morning? What gets you to stick around? This is a real question. Because on any given Sunday, atheists and Junitarians, shamanists and recovering Catholics, practicing Buddhists, we all share the pews. We all gather around our computer screens. We don't share a creed. There's no unified UU cosmology. Some of us have a daily spiritual practice. Many of us don't. Yet we have banded together, misfits sharing a religious community committed to the idea that everyone belongs and everyone deserves to be heard. As Mike said so beautifully, we are all on a journey to find meaning, connection, and love in our short lives. Yet we still have what in seminary they used to call growing edges, places where we could do better, places where we could be more welcoming, more inclusive. And I think one of those places is talking about the holy, talking about God. Many UUs find that challenging and uncomfortable. We fear the mystics among us. As a denomination, we value calm intellect over rowdy spiritual expression, measured investigation over mystical meaning-making. Remember those folks who glanced back at Arlo and Annie once, twice, that warning look, maybe you need to go outside, that look? I've seen that exact same glance when people start talking too freely about their relationship with the divine. Like, maybe you should take that outside. And once I overheard a conversation where a new congregant, not at Cedars, talked excitedly about having a personal relationship with Jesus. And someone leaned forward and said with authority, and I'm paraphrasing here, "There's no Jesus in this sanctuary. You need to put that away." Okay, they didn't really say that, but it was pretty close. We definitely prefer that spiritual awakenings happen outside. Now, in 1967, not that long after Unitarians and Universalists merged into a new denomination, Newsweek magazine said that UUs were atheists who have not shaken the church habit. Even now, our denomination remains more humanist than theist. And there are very good reasons for this. Many of us have had difficult, if not traumatic, experiences with other organized religions. We've been hurt, beaten down, disappointed by God-believing people and communities. We live in a nation where right-wing Christian values vie for political domination. And so often religion and God seem more focused on hatred and exclusion rather than love and acceptance. This history is part of our common collective understanding. And yet, here we are. It's Sunday morning, and we continue to gather together to worship, to be renewed in spirit, to feel something stirring within. We want this so much that we've created a way to worship together, even during a pandemic. As a community and as individuals, we yearn for deeper meaning, for fuller understanding, for a chance to feel like part of something greater than ourselves. We sing when the Spirit says sing. We sing, "Spirit of life, come to me, come to me." We are asking to be filled up, to create deeper connections. We are asking for help to choose again, to choose Spirit. We may be reluctant to talk about it, but the Spirit moves among us just the same. Now, I grew up in Texas, and I went to a lot of football games back in the day. So often when I think of Spirit, my thoughts turn to pep rallies. It still happens all these years later. I read some theological tract about the holy, about the Spirit with a capital S, and I find myself chanting, "We've got Spirit. Yes, we do. We've got Spirit. How about you?" Surprisingly, this combination of spirited and spiritual translates beautifully into church life. I am very rah-rah about Unitarian Universalism and the gifts that we have to offer to each other and to the world. Because we are the spirited, those wiggly kids asking why. And we are the skeptics focused on what can be known and measured. We are the introverts and the extroverts. We whisper and we yell. We are also the mystics yearning to hear what Henry David Thoreau called the chant yet more universal. We belong here together. Our challenge is to make sure everyone feels our inclusive embrace, our expansive welcome. Whenever we meet, wherever we meet, let's make room for the spirited and the spiritual, for the misfits and the outsiders. That is our call, because everyone deserves to be asked, what do you need to make this your church? I want to close with a story about going to convocation at Mills College several years ago. At this convocation, which welcomes first-year students onto campus, I heard Professor Imani Taylor, who's a professor of American Studies and African American Studies at Princeton University, and she gave a speech to all of the incoming freshmen at Mills. Mills has a very unusual student body. A majority of the students are queer or transgendered. A majority of the students are religious minorities, racial minorities, ethnic minorities. Many of the students are the first in their family to ever go to college. And Perry's speech was aimed directly to these students and their particular nervousness about college, their fears about finding success and fitting in. Perry told them, "You are always enough, and you are never too much. You are always enough, and you are never too much." I was in the audience that day, but Perry wasn't talking to me. She wanted the 18-year-old African-American girl from West Oakland behind me to trust herself. She wanted the queer daughter of a single mom to feel confident in who they were. "You are perfect," Perry said. "You are not too loud or too brash or too brown or too different. You have what it takes to transform the world." Perry wasn't talking about me, but her words seeped into my soul anyway. And now I say them to myself whenever I am feeling uncertain or tired or worried about how people see me. I say to myself, "You are always enough and you are never too much." And then I add my own reminder. You are God's own child, a child of the universe, perfectly made, beloved. That is my spiritual mantra, and I want to share that with you. So now I say to you, you are always enough, and you are never too much. You are a child of God, a child of the universe, perfectly made, beloved. May it be so. Amen.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
You are always enough, and you are never too much. In these days ahead, when the glimmerings of hope pull you forward and the realities of the pandemic pull you down, when you have so much energy you don't know what to do, and then when you have no energy and you feel lost and alone, remember, you are always enough and you are never too much. Our service today has ended, but our service to the world has just begun. May it be so.
Amen.